So I don't know if you all know we have this app, and there's this cool little feature where if you click on the app and you go to, whoops, that's the game, and you go to the bottom right where it says More, there's actually two things that you don't see on the bottom, and one's a gallery, but the more important one is crowd picks. So if you click on crowd picks, you can then upload your own pictures and share them with everybody. So be sure to add your pics to our rich sampling of a lot that's going on. Thank you so much for coming. I am going to do something I don't normally do. So dear friends, colleagues, collaborators, fellow researchers and clinicians, it's a sincere honor to stand before you today. I'm incredibly proud to be the president of the International Society for Research on Internet Interventions, president, and to be delivering the first formal presidential address, the first of which I hope will be many. I don't normally write out my talks, but in this case, for this event, I wanted to be sure I said the things I wanted to say, and to say them exactly right. In fact, approximately a week ago, I was in bed, beginning to feel that slight nervous sensation that occurs when thinking about an upcoming talk that has not yet been written, and knowing that there wasn't going to be the time to put together the kind of talk that I wish I had time to create. Lights were off, my eyes wide open, and I started to think out the talk in my head. There we go. Think about what I wanted to say, what points I wanted to make, how best to kick off this sixth meeting of ISRII, which in many ways also feels like the first. I realized I wasn't going to get to sleep, so instead got up, went downstairs and turned on my computer, and I started to write. The last time I had actually written out a talk had been almost 3 decades ago. Almost 29 years ago to the day, in fact. And in all this time and all the hundreds of talks that I've given, I've created outlines, taken detailed notes, practiced what I'd say, but never do I remember writing out word for word what I wanted to share. I'm not a religious person, but I am Jewish, and do the things many non-religious Jewish people tend to do. I celebrate the Jewish holidays, I go to synagogue on high holidays, I feel guilty a lot. But I was raised somewhat religious, and at age 13, I had a bar mitzvah. So a bar mitzvah is the Jewish coming-of-age ritual, a time when we as Jewish children become accountable for our actions. It's a big celebration, and family and friends from all over come together to share in that moment. And during the bar mitzvah ceremony, the child, becoming an adult, gives a speech. And it's this speech that I wrote, the last speech I remember writing out, until this one today. I gave that talk in 1984, May 12th, in fact. This is not the only coincidence in this story, not the only parallel. So when you have your bar mitzvah, as part of the celebration, you're showered with gifts. Much of this gift comes as cash, and on my bar mitzvah, I received approximately $3,500, a not insignificant amount then or now. In fact, it was almost the perfect amount. I said, did I want one? So with my father's help, I went and shopped for my first computer. I remember quite clearly going back and forth to the computer store, many times trying to figure out what I wanted. The Apple Macintosh had just come out a few months before, and it looked amazing, but it was so expensive. And I wanted to be able to get a nice monitor and a printer, a 9-pin dot matrix, the sound, and a fan-fold paper. So I decided on the Apple IIe computer, and I've never looked back. So fast forward 20 years, I was about 5 years in as an assistant professor, and had found a way to combine my love of computers with my career path as a clinical psychologist. I knew there were others out there doing similar kinds of work, but felt fairly isolated within this space. I'd be excited to see an article in the literature by Deb Tate or Bart Taylor or Russ Glasgow and his colleagues on DNet. But back in the late 90s and early 2000s, this was pretty far and few between. And then, on January 27, 2004, at 2:29 p.m. Eastern Time, I received an email from Per Coltrane. He requested a reprint of a small review paper on internet interventions we published in Professional Psychology. This was soon followed by an exchange with Gerhard Andersen, who quickly noted that we had not included a paper they published in 2001 in Behavior Therapy on what was the first controlled internet-based panic trial. Fortunately, though, that email was not only to reprimand me. It indicated that they were planning a small meeting for researchers in the area of internet interventions, and wondered if I might be able to attend. It was called the First International Meeting on CBT and the Internet, and would occur on September 17th and 18th, 2004. It was at this meeting where about 24 of us met in a small auditorium and shared research findings for a couple of days, where ISRII was born. In fact, it was at this hotel restaurant where Gerhard, Per, and the late Jeff Richards and I sat and had beers and discussed a new name for the organization and the desire to keep the meeting going every year or two. This was the beginning of ISRII, an acronym we had difficulty deciding how to pronounce, but one that has stuck. With the initial ISRII meeting a success, we began planning for a second. Again, it would be in Sweden, and already there was growing interest. The 2006 meeting was double the size of the 2004 meeting, and the 2007 meeting, held at my university, the University of Virginia, almost doubled that. In 2009, we had our fourth meeting in Amsterdam, and this was organized by Helene Riper along with Pim Kuipers and Freddie Lang. Another huge success, and further fueled the fire that had become ISRII. Our last meeting, whoops, I am actually skipping out all the pictures. So there's the 2006, 2007, 2009. Australia in early April 2011 in the Lost Light compound of the Q station was perhaps the best meeting yet. It was at this meeting that we decided to take seriously the idea of formalizing ISRII as a real organization. As many of you know, I ran much of the day-to-day operations of ISRII out of my office. And as much as I enjoyed doing so, having email exchanges with many of you, interested in joining our distribution lists, learning about all the new and exciting work that was being done all over the world, I realized I could not maintain it given the growth we were experiencing. We had over 500 people on our distribution list representing more than 25 countries, and more coming in every day. So we decided to bring on a management group to help oversee our society. We created a board of directors, Helen Christensen, Gerhard Andersen, Per Karlpring, David Moore, Pim Kuipers, Helene Riper, Kate Kavanaugh, Ricardo Munoz, and myself, and helped put all the pieces into place to establish our organization. And this brings us to today, the 6th meeting of the International Society for Research on Internet Interventions, with close to 300 attendees representing 18 countries. And in helping put together the program for this meeting, I couldn't help but be excited by where we are now, particularly as I've reflected on where we were and to where we appear to be headed. This meeting is a clear extension from that first meeting a decade ago, yet the expansion is wide. At the Robust Internet Interventions, we have talks on mobile and SMS applications, sensors, virtual reality, and gaming, with new foci on issues of design and usability, engagement, social networking, cost effectiveness. Our definition for internet interventions is greatly expanded, and while some may suggest that perhaps we've outgrown the term internet intervention, I would argue that it's the internet that is the foundation of the work we're doing, what connects us all. And changing the name at this point is really just too much work. ISRII has been one of my most rewarding and cherished endeavors as a professional. Some of my closest colleagues, friends, are because of ISRII. ISRII was and is something I needed, particularly early in my career. A decade ago, there was no dedicated group or meeting focused on psychology and technology, and I would go to other conferences and scan the programs, hoping to find a talk or two that felt relevant to me. Still to this day, when I go to other meetings, the first thing I do is look to identify other technology-focused presentations. And when I go to these other meetings, I can usually find a way to fit in and find a few others, a few of you, with whom to connect. But I think we're all still often seen as a novelty, perhaps less so today than before, as the utility and efficacy of what we do becomes more known. But at these meetings, I never feel fully integrated. There are obvious pros and cons to all of this. The pro is that we as researchers in e-health cut across all other areas. On depression or cancer or diabetes or children, there may be a group of people within the area focused on its intersection with technology. But the con is that it tends to keep us on the periphery and never fully a part of any of these other spaces. But not at ISRII. Here, I'm like a kid in a candy store. I can go to any session and feel a part of what's being discussed. I know many of you have other professional homes, but you likely found your way here because you are working in a particular area or disorder and realize the potential of technology in your space. Some of you are experts in anxiety and stress and HIV, substance abuse, obesity, but you realize that with technology you might be able to significantly expand scope, help more people be more efficient. You might not even consider yourself techie or overly computer savvy, but you're excited about the potential, all of the possibilities. We have an opportunity to help countless people around the world, given the work we're doing here. I would argue that the work we're doing here may result in the greatest impact psychology has yet produced. This passion of mine, this passion of ours, and this desire to have a focused site in which to meet and discuss and debate this young field is the foundation of ISRII. It is why it began, it's why it has flourished. And I call it home, our home. I want to thank all of you for coming to this meeting. My hope is that you'll leave feeling more inspired, energized, enthused, and connected, that you'll have made new relationships that lead to exciting new projects. This is the intent behind the first ever ISRII Throwdown, of which so many of you signed up with so little information. For those of you who did not sign up, I hope you'll be involved and join the Throwdown session on Saturday morning to help choose the 2013 ISRII champion. And I also hope that those of you who have only been modestly involved or not involved in ISRII choose to get more involved. This organization can be as good as we choose to make it, and with this in mind, we'll be holding a members meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., and at this meeting, we'll discuss our path forward as an organization. We'll also talk about ways for everyone to get involved, and I really hope that all will come. Thank you again for coming to the 6th scientific meeting of the International Society for Research on Internet Interventions, and enjoy. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to move right on if you're good with that. All right. So you get to hear me read a little bit more. I would like to move to our keynote presentation on this first day of this meeting. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome and introduce Dr. Russ Glasgow, our keynote presenter. Dr. Glasgow is the Deputy Director for Dissemination and Implementation Science in the Division of Cancer Control and Population Sciences at the National Cancer Institute. Dr. Glasgow earned his PhD in clinical psychology from the University. This is the intent behind the first ever ISRII Throwdown, of which so many of you signed up with so little information. For those of you who did not sign up, I hope you'll be involved and join the Throwdown session on Saturday morning to help choose the 2013 ISRII champion. And I also hope that those of you who have only been modestly involved or not involved in ISRII choose to get more involved. This organization can be as good as we choose to make it, and with this in mind, we'll be holding a members meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., and at this meeting, we'll discuss our path forward as an organization. We'll also talk about ways for everyone to get involved, and I really hope that all will come. Thank you again for coming to the 6th scientific meeting of the International Society for Research on Internet Interventions, and enjoy. Thank you.